Jean-Luc Riker broke his arm playing Parisi squares. Data uses a contraction, and Riker tells Picard to shut up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing an episode review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 8, Future Imperfect, written by J. Larry Carroll. It's very close to a basketball player. And David Karen, directed by Les Landau, our good pal. This was November 10th, 1990. Where were you? How you doing today, Sirach?
I'm good. I don't know where I was November 10th.
Yeah, J. Larry Carroll. You know, there was a Joe Barry Carroll back in the 70s, played basketball.
Joe Barry Carroll?
Joe Barry Carroll. Yep. Good player. You'll never guess why I know that name. You'll never guess what team he played for.
Let me just think really hard.
Yeah. So
I would never get that.
Yeah. Okay. So
first time I see his name though, and him and David Bennett Karen. First time I see their names in this, I think on this show.
Me too. I'm gonna check to see if they've done anything else later on, but certainly not before.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an episode. Yeah, you know him well.
Yeah. Yeah, buddy.
Okay, so the first guy, Joe Barry Carroll, J. Larry Carroll, he worked in the writer's room, it seems. So he was a story editor for a couple episodes in season 4. Okay. And for basically the entirety of season 5. But this was the only episode that, he's credited as writing the full episode. Probably the same for the other fellow, David Karen, because they are writing partners, so it's probably the same. But this is an episode that I owned on VHS back in the day. So when this episode popped up, I was like, oh, I remember this one. I've seen it quite a bit. It's part of the reason why I think Commander Tomalak, I feel like he's in 15 episodes of The Next Generation, but it's only like 3 or 4. But maybe it just feels like he's in a bunch because I saw this episode a ton. But it's a memorable one, and it's fun, and it's interesting, and it gives us a glimpse into a potential Star Trek future. But what did you think of it?
Yeah, I enjoyed the episode. I thought the premise was good. So, shout out to the writers for coming up with a real science fiction-y type of story. I like to see episodes like this where there's alternate futures or some kind of puzzle or riddle that needs to be explained. You're trying to, explain it away in your own mind. As I'm watching the episode, I'm thinking, did time really pass? Did he really get caught in the gas? And, am I watching a real life flash forward, time has passed kind of episode? Or how is this going to get back to square one? So that was one of the big mysteries of this. I didn't know Riker was a tromboner. Didn't know that. That's a nice little extra thing to see him play that.
Yeah.
Love the
It's a lot. There's a lot to be said there.
There's a lot to be said. But no, I like this episode. It was fun to watch. It's funny because now I've gotten to the point where I feel like I know these characters so well that there's moments where I'll be yelling at the TV like, well, where's O'Brien? I thought he's the transporter thief, right? So I'm like, what the hell is Chief O'Brien?
Yeah, and then I started thinking like, damn, I would have liked to see them age up Chief O'Brien. Like put him 16 years, because that was interesting. Worf looked the same. They put a scar on him and they're like, look, you're 16 years older, you got a scar. They aged Riker and Picard and Troy, and they didn't really age Geordi, but they changed him, which was great. right? We got to see his
Yeah.
eyes. He's got his ocular implants. So these are things where it's like, how did some alien kid piece that together? I guess he scanned Riker's brain, and in Riker's brain, Riker assumes that someday Geordi will have ocular implants and not need a visor or something like that. I don't know. I don't know how deeply the writers dug into that, but you would think that if somebody's just guessing about the future, some aliens guessing about the future, they wouldn't have those minute details like that, because that really sells it for us, the viewer. And I wanted to ask you, you kind of touched on it, but when you saw this, did you think that they had gone actually 16 years in the future? Or did you think there was something weird? Did you think it was like, because the way they set it up, I think a lot of us would think, oh, they went 16 years into the future, but we know it's going to reset, like you said, back to square one. But you think sometimes, they're going to fix 16 years in the future what went wrong 16 years in the past, and it'll reset or something like that. What did you think about that?
So the things that made me that I thought were great. Number one was, first thing I see is Dr. Crusher. And to me, she looked aged and it looked believable, right? Like her hair was different. She seemed a little bit thinner. I think they added a little strands of gray into her hair. And it looked realistic to me. Like, oh, this looks like an aged Dr. Crusher. Okay. So that started. And then I noticed that the sick bay looked different too. It looked more updated. There were like computer monitors in different places. And so I was like, is this the sick bay I always have been seeing? Or is this some kind of updated version of it? So there were moments, those kinds of things added to the, like, those are the things, details I'm looking for. The other detail that popped out to me was, I thought the comm badge seemed different or futuristic to some degree, because his had like the 4 slashes, which indicated he was a captain, and
Right.
hers
And they
had
didn't
the
have the
3.
pips.
Right, and they didn't have
Yeah.
the pips.
Yeah,
So
it's
those
funny
things
because I
lended
noticed that too.
credibility.
I was like, wait, where are their pips? What's going on? And I was like, oh, I see. It's on the comm badge. And that's another thing, that would an alien child know to update things in that way based off of a scan of Riker's brain? Those are things where I'm like, okay, that's definitely suspension of disbelief, because you would think that he would think to age
Recreate.
them, sure, but then yeah, exactly, recreate everything else. But that's more for the viewer to see, because those are fun details. Those are the kind of details that make you think, wow, that really could have been a believable future with a Ferengi ensign. That was cool.
Another cool detail, absolutely. I love that. I was like, well, they got Captain Nog. He's already, that was the prototype of that idea.
Directed
Is
by
the
Les
first,
Landau, no less. Landau.
yes, yes. So it was actually, it was the beginning of that idea, that thought of a Ferengi in Starfleet really first appears in this exact moment in this episode, which is, I thought, was a great nod to Nog. Without it being a nod necessarily at the time, but in
Yeah.
hindsight, it appears to be, a
Yeah.
nod.
There are a lot of fun, like, there's a lot that happens in this episode. There's a lot that happens. There's Riker's birthday. There's, a Ferengi on the bridge. There's a Klingon walking through the corridors. Okay, here's something. And this is going to be, Ryan's nitpick, because I've been already nitpicking a bunch, but we are introduced to Patty Yasutaki, who played Nurse Alyssa Ogawa. Let me see. Yeah, Patty Yasutaki, who coincidentally just passed away a few days ago. And
Wow.
yeah, and she plays Nurse Ogawa. And she was in quite a few episodes. I feel like it was at least a dozen episodes going forward. But this was her first episode, and I don't think she had a name. She was mentioned, there was just
No.
Crusher just said a few things to her and she nodded or whatever. Yes, doctor. Yes, 16 episodes she was in.
Wow.
But here's so I was very happy to see her. I was like, oh, it's Nurse Ogawa. Finally, we're introduced to Nurse Ogawa, who we're going to see a bunch more later on. So this is great.
Yeah.
Finally, you know how we've had like Dr. Solar, and we've had these little doctors that pop in for one episode and we don't get anything out of it. We finally get a recurring secondary medical officer, which is great. Love it. So happy to see her. However,
Yes.
this is 16 years in the future. It's coming out of some alien kid's mind. So how was she in a future episode? If she was introduced in this fake theoretical thing, how could she then be in future episodes? That's number one. That could be explained away as, oh, she was already on the Enterprise, but we've just never seen her. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
But her age, she was like, what, 28 years old there?
Mm-hmm.
So she's 12 in present day. And I'll just bet when we see her in the next episode, she'll be the exact same age that she is in this episode. So it would have been nice. It would have been a nice touch if they had aged her, even though it was her introduction, if they had aged her to somebody in her 40s, you know. But anyway, those are details that maybe they didn't know she was going to come back. But anyway, that's just such a strange conundrum there where they brought her for this episode and then maybe they didn't know they were going to have her come back. And then when they did, they're like, you know, I guess she just didn't age for 16 years and she was introduced from an alien kid's mind. And it's just this weird, it's just the weirdest introduction. I didn't realize that was her first episode, but yeah, she's going to be the same age next time we see her. And that makes me feel very nitpicky.
Yeah, that's a big loophole that they overlooked on that. I agree with you. I didn't know that we would be seeing more of her. So this is, I thought, was a one and done type of episode for her. Because we've seen other nurses assist Dr. Crusher over the years. And so this just looked like another one that was going to be kind of the one-off episode, you know. Definitely did have camera recognizability. There was, as soon as she flashed on the camera, there was like, oh, who is this person?
Yeah.
So there was, you know, the camera was attracted to, you know, her and her performance. But also to that black transporter woman that was also in this one-off episode. I was looking at her like, oh, so they're going to blame the whole transporter accident on this movie, right? It's like, throw the black girl under the bus. Like, oh, what happened? You couldn't pick up Riker?
She's like, I'm not detecting you. Oh, well, did you try hard?
Did you press the buttons really hard?
Yeah.
Did you hit it a couple of times?
Yeah. Did you bang on the side?
Chief O'Brien knows how to press those buttons to get
everybody
time beamed up.
You know, the other thing was there was her, and then there was also just this random dude on the bridge too that just turned around. He's like, I'm not detecting any blah blah blah. I'm like, well, hang on. Well, who are you? Why would you be detecting anything? I don't know you. Ensign Smith.
Yeah.
What did he say? Hang on. He said, oh yeah. He says, I'm detecting unusual frequencies. And I was like, wait. We're not just going to pretend like we know this guy, are we? Because I've never seen him before. And I want to look him up. Anyway, there was this, yeah. But and then he was gone. I wanted Riker to be like, or Picard to be like, pardon me, but who are you? Do I know you? What are you doing here? Let me see who it is, this guy.
Yeah. Excuse me, who are you? What are you detecting? Who is this man?
Yeah. Let me see. I don't know what this guy. Uh, okay,
is
so
on
the
the
lady
bridge,
you're
right?
talking about is transporter technician Hubble. That's a nice name, Hubble, like
Okay.
Hubble telescope. Then
Okay.
there's another transporter chief that was played by George O'Hanlon Jr. I think
Okay. Yeah, I saw that
I
guy.
think it was Gleason, played by Todd Merrill. I think he was Gleason.
Okay.
Let's see how many. Oh, wait, no, he plays in 2 episodes. Oh, the other one was Best of
Okay.
Both Worlds. We already saw it. So good old Gleason got 2 episodes. Good for him.
Yeah. Okay. So he belongs there. He belongs to detect different frequencies.
Yeah, he nailed it.
He nailed it. I don't know. So again, the nerd in me is always trying to do exactly what you're doing. And I guess that's what Star Trek does. It brings out the inner nerd in you that tries to find flaws in some kind of way of continuity, right? You mentioned that this nurse Ogawa, and the flaw that she would have been aged, and that we would see her the next time younger at this age would have been more appropriate. If you're going to make her stay consistently the same age, you should have aged her for this episode and then brought her back in. But I think the same kind of continuity, I also, as this episode plays out, my mind tries to find, you know, patterns in the storyline and see if they add up. And the one that jumped out to me was the Geordie not having a visor.
Hmm.
Because if I'm not mistaken, I thought it was offered to Geordie to have his visor removed by Q in the early seasons of these episodes, when Q kind of comes on with that bravado, and he makes Wesley into an older man, and then he's going to wish away Geordie's visual impairment
Yeah.
and give him the opportunity to see. And Geordie refuses that. Like, he denies that. He says, "No, no, I'm okay. I want to remain the way I am." So in my mind, he wouldn't even be procuring or looking out for this kind of a procedure, which was probably already available at that time anyways. There's a whole
Yeah,
Wesley.
there's
Yeah.
adult Wesley Crusher. I love looking
Exactly.
back at that. It's so good.
Yeah. So I felt from that episode that Geordie was LaForge was committed to just being the way he was with his visor and the extra things that visor actually does. It allows him to see on a different spectrum of light. It allows him to, it's an enhanced a vision type of
Hmm.
device. So I thought he wanted to keep that. I thought that he had no desire to be any other way. However, though that belief has been now contradicted both by this episode and also by the Picard season 3, when they brought back LaForge and he was without the visor.
Just you wait, Sirach. There's more to this. There's definitely more to this
Okay.
story. But yeah, I mean, maybe theoretically his ocular implants can do everything that his visor can do. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But yeah, I do remember when Q was like, I can wish this away. And he's like, unhand me. Basically. But I mean, that probably is just because it was from Q and they were kind of resisting him. But
Yeah.
that's interesting because Geordi does have, just a really good story arc. You're starting to see it already, like he started off as a lieutenant junior grade, then he became a lieutenant by the second season. Now I think he's already a lieutenant commander. He's just moving up the ranks pretty well. He's going back and forth between the bridge and engineering. He's doing a lot. We're learning about his troubles with women. We're learning about his wishes and desires with his vision and what he does and doesn't want. And it was cool to see him without the visor. And then it was kind of a bummer that finally we can see him act with his eyes, and he only had like a couple lines. It wasn't, it wasn't really used,
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
just saying some, oh, I don't know, there's a thing here in the corner, and that was it.
yeah. Which again, going back to what you said earlier about this alien kid that had this ability to read your mind and then extrapolate a universe and recreate one, based on the specs that you're giving him. How would he then extrapolate the Geordi no longer having the visor out of the head of uh, Riker? Is that what Riker imagines for Geordi? Is that what he thinks that he would want? So it's kind of a weird thing. But I want to give credit to the writers because there were some little moments there that I thought were clever. And one of them was when Riker kept noticing the delay in the computer system,
Yeah.
not uploading as fast as it should be, and that being based on the diagnosis being run by Geordi, and that kind of being a clue to Riker, like, wait a minute, Geordi is not taking this long diagnosis. Like, this something's wrong here. That was a clever writing tool to kind of break the trance that Riker was in. I thought that was a great way to do that.
Yeah, and of course, the clincher was Minuet. Minuet was in that episode 11001001. I think is what it was called, with the Binars. I think it was towards the end of the first season. It was either end of the first season or beginning of the second season. I think it was a first season episode. There's little Binars that would be like running around themselves. And then there was that holodeck program with Minuet. Now, so that was the big clincher, was that's how he knew it was fake. He's like, wait, but Minuet's not a real person. There's no way she could have been my mate. Now, what I did find to be rather amusing and peculiar was when he says something, when he's talking with Tomalak, and he was telling him how he was able to figure out that it wasn't real was because of Minuet. And he says, well, it was a very special program, or because he was saying something. I wish I could find my notes, but he said, like, he's like, but you had such strong and intense feelings for her. And he's like, well, it was a very special program. I'm like, okay, how far are we taking this if Tomalak or whomever was sensing that Riker had very strong feelings for this holodeck program? And Riker saying, well, it was a very wink and nod special program to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
draw your own
on late night.
Yeah, draw your own
Playboy
conclusions.
Channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that program. I would say also there were some things that threw me off, and that just like I would have liked to see it play out differently. Number one, I would have liked Counselor Troy to be the mother of that kid. I was waiting for it too. Like when
Right.
it was like when it was coming, and she was like, she walked him in. It's like, let me walk into your quarters. I thought that was the moment where she's going to be like, don't you know we had a kid together? Because they have had this ongoing kind of back and forth love for each other. And that would be somebody I would think would be the person that, if you were scanning his brain, would pop up the most over and over again. Like, he may have had these one night flings with these, the Irish girl that one episode, and with the Minuet character in the computer program. But but the person who he's consistently had feelings for over time seems to be Troy, right? And even that was alluded to because Troy says that the Minuet wife of his was actually the counselor that replaced her when she left the Enterprise, right? So it was a counselor.
I'm thinking we'll talk about this more on the other side, but I was like, my first thought was, okay, so he's got a type. Like
Right,
he wants
yes,
somebody to like run their fingers
yes,
through his hair and tell him it's okay and to dissect his emotions for him. He wants to be mothered, you know. He's got
yeah, yeah, yeah.
some kind of type. But all right, well, let's take our quick break and talk a little bit more about, I guess, Riker's sexual exploits on the other side. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the seventh rule. We've got a very special guest right now. It is Mr. Chris Demetral. How are you today, Chris?
Hey, I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
You played 3 roles in one episode. You played Jean-Luc Riker, you played Ethan, and you played Barash. Or wait,
That's
actually,
right.
did you play Barash?
I'm glad you mentioned that. A lot of people don't know that when you're a child actor, set school is part of the equation. So part of your day is spent on set, and then you have a mandated amount of hours that you have to spend in the classroom to keep up with your studies. So a lot of times producers, if they can cheat off or use different angles or a stand-in, a lot of times they'll do that to substitute for an actor. So I was actually in set school when Barash was being filmed, and I had the best stand-in. She was so fantastic, but she could not see at all with that alien head on.
Wow.
So I know in between takes, she was like, "Guys, hello, hey, hi." So yeah, that part I didn't get to do, but it's fun to watch it, and it's fun to share that memory. And just a little bit about the child actor experience. Just it is incredibly enjoyable, but it was always a challenge to balance studies and also the artwork as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I thought you did a fantastic job in this episode, Chris. Not easy to come in as a guest star, be as heavily featured as you were in this episode, essentially in a lot of the scenes. What do you remember about working alongside the great Jonathan Frakes, and how welcoming was the cast and crew for you?
So I was blessed to do a lot of different guest stars over my 14-year career, but I think for me, this was especially, I was 13 years old. I was going to turn 14 when it aired in November. But for me, I was such a huge fan of the show to begin with. I had watched every single episode. So
Really?
I was incredibly just over the moon excited to be on the set. That was one of the first things I did was run onto the deck and hit every single button and sit in Picard's chair. The prop master was fantastic. I got a chance as a 13-year-old to play with every Klingon sword, every phaser, every real phaser, every rubber phaser that they used for background actors. So for me, it was such a brilliant and incredible blessing to be able to go onto a show that I'd already loved so much. The cast was absolutely amazing, from Sir Patrick to Jonathan to Brent to Will Wheaton, who actually thought that I might be replacing him on the show, which I told him I certainly was not. It was just a guest star, but it was an incredibly wonderful cast and crew. I will always think back warmly on that time, and they made you feel welcome. They really did. You felt like family right away.
Oh, that's so cool. That's funny. You answered 4 of my questions in one shot. I mean, Srock, you asked about Jonathan Frakes, but yeah, I was wondering, were you a Star Trek fan? What was it like when you first came on the set? You're answering all this stuff. Whoa! It seems like it was just like a dream come true. You grew up as a Star Trek fan. You're 13 years old. By the way, your eyes have not changed. I see that kid in you. It's amazing. I feel like I'm talking to this guy right here.
A little bit different up top.
Yeah.
No, I know about that. I know about that.
Yeah. But it's all right.
I also wanted to ask you because there's so much to cover here. Do you remember what the audition was like? Do you remember if you knew it was Star Trek at the time? And if so, how exciting it was, how nervous you were, what it was like.
Yeah, I definitely knew it was for next gen, and the nerves were super high, just because, like I said, I was such an incredibly big fan of the show. So I interviewed, and it was taped, and Les Landau, who directed the episode, was actually a huge fan of a show I was doing on HBO called Dream On, and he was just excited to work with me based off of that. So it's really, again, just an incredible blessing to know that one of these shows that I was able to participate in kind of opened up the door for this show. So yeah, interviewed for it. I believe I found out the next day that I got it. I was so excited to go into, get fitted for the outfit that you saw there, and just figured out, how they do all the crazy good tricks with the zippers, and how they made the whole uniform look seamless. It was, I have to say, every bit of it was just fascinating for me as a fan of the show. And just studying it, you like the things that you were surprised about, like when you look out into the galaxy behind you, it was very much just a black felt cloth that they punched holes in, and there was lights behind it. So that was the galaxy. I mean, the things that worked and the things that didn't work, as far as being able to turn on, turn off. I tried it all. I hit every button on the main deck.